Fate would have it that you now possess a box with a rare collection of souls, caught between our world and the next. They dwell within the Baetylus stones, molded into the likeness of their inhabitants. Perhaps intended for some greater purpose, these imprisoned beings now serve only as pawns for a game of high rewards.
Hello and welcome. My name is Paul Gentili, creator and illustrator of the game Baetylus Circle of Six, and composer of the song heard in the introduction of this video. Baetylus Circle of Six is essentially a three-dimensional chess match with two opposing sides, each consisting of 5 characters. Characters possess different movement rates, attack, defense, and health levels, along with natural, passive abilities and special abilities that can be activated after drawing the proper card. The end goal is to eliminate each character of the opposing side. Baetylus is a game driven by the uniqueness of its characters. In order to emerge victorious, it is vital to possess an intimate knowledge of each character on the field, your own as well as those opposing you. To help with this, character sheets and the rulebook with its accompanying glossary can be accessed by any player at any time during gameplay.
It is also very team-driven. Each character's uniqueness comes with a price, and in order to capitalize on each other's strengths as well as compensate for any weaknesses, it is important to assemble a well-balanced team and to pair characters whose abilities can directly play off one another. Also, being unique, no 2 players may play as the same character in any given game, unless agreed upon earlier, with each side having already assembled a team of their favorite characters. Characters will be chosen in a schoolyard-style pick, taking turns choosing the members of a team. Doing so allows fairness, but also a way for players to counteract opposing characters. For example, some characters possess passive strengths and weaknesses dependent upon their race or creature type. Demons receive damage from salt and salt water, undead from silver, fairies iron, and vampires light, silver, and fire. Having a character with weapons possessing those attributes, or with abilities able to exploit those weaknesses, will gain advantage in each game. Once characters have been chosen, cards pertinent to those characters are given to the side controlling them. The cards are shuffled and will be randomly drawn during the course of the game. Once the cards have formed a deck for each opposing side, the exordium begins. This involves taking turns placing your characters anywhere upon the game field, so long as you remain 8 spaces from an allied character and 5 spaces from an opposing character. The choice of character placement will undoubtedly change the course of any game. The terrain can both be used for offensive and defensive positioning, and just as in real life, higher ground provides a boost to both offense and defense while attacking. There are also certain physical and even chemical attributes to the gaming field. Upon this particular board, we have 3 different substances. There's the stone of the flooring and walls, the wood of the docks, and the salt water lying between and beneath. The water acts as a hindrance to most players at best, reducing their movement rates, but since it is salt water, for demon characters, it actively damages them. For one character in particular, Jacatl, the Stygian mermaid, it acts as a pathway she alone can travel with ease. The stone acts as solid ground, barriers in the form of walls, and for Rin, the dwarven stonecutter, a medium through which his magic works. The wooden docks we treat as stone for most purposes, to to help simplify the game for now. After the exordium, the initial placement of characters, the real action begins, starting with round 1. Each round is broken into 2 moments, 1 moment for each opposing side that is further broken into 2 turns for each side. A side may consist of 1 player or a team of 2 to 5 players. The players of a team may talk to one another secretly if desired, and have the freedom to plan out and execute moves however they wish while adhering to the rules set for each moment. During a moment, an opposing side first draws a card and may play a total of 2 characters, 1 for each turn. They may move these 2 characters, 1 character moving once the first turn, then the second character moving once in the second turn, but can attack and use a card only once in that entire moment. Cards are specific to a character. The description designates which character the card belongs to, granting that character a special ability or item. Most abilities and items only exist for that turn, but some stick around for a few turns or rounds, and some are even permanent, existing until the game has ended. The game ends when an opposing side's characters have been eliminated. In some cases, a stalemate may occur. This often involves a weaker character always running from a stronger character, who lacks the ability to move close enough to attack. Characters attack each other with weapons or with their own body. The vast majority of attacks, especially those that do not utilize cards, are melee attacks. These attacks require a character to be adjacent within a 1 space distance from another character. Damage is suffered and calculated by subtracting the defense number of the attacked character from the attack number of the attacking character. This number is subtracted from the character's health. When reaching 0, that character is eliminated from the game. A corpse token is placed upon the field, and that character's cards are sent to the card cemetery. Corpses follow the phrase, down but not out. Depending on the characters still active on the field, corpses can still prove to be quite dangerous. Some characters' cards allow a corpse to be resurrected, fed upon to revive health, or twisted into dangerous traps and wards. Attacks can also be made using cards. The cards are where the magic of the game truly resides. The random draws add an element of surprise, luck, and further excitement to the game. And visually, they add art and color to the playing experience. The characters alone are designed to be very unique and very different from one another, but with the cards they possess, they become wholly different creatures altogether. Most characters possess an average of around 4 or 5 cards special to them. No 2 characters share a card. Think of the cards as equipment permanent to that character. Each game they get the same cards that are randomly drawn each moment. Card abilities run a vast gamut. Some may alter the minds of other characters, causing them to behave in erratic ways or enchanting them with illusion. There are cards that gain a player better access to their own deck or their opponent's deck or hand. Cards that are used to defend a character or even their allies by hiding them. Cards that create structures to be used as weapons, wards, or traps. Some cards transform characters, increasing their stats temporarily or permanently, and some allow you the freedom to choose between 2 different options presented on that card. There are a few cards I'd like to mention more specifically. The Iron Maiden card is a card that belongs to Akem, the ascetic warrior mystic. Cards, as well as character sheets, have certain words that are distinguished by being in capitalized red letters. This denotes that these words can be found in the glossary at the end of the rulebook. The definition given for these words allows players to learn how these specific words apply to gameplay. In the text description of the card, we find that the Iron Maiden armor is iron plate armor, armed with pada and flail, and spiked without and within to remind Akem of the suffering of all life. While equipped, increased defense to 900 iron and attack to 1850 iron. Cannot be knocked back by wind. Each round worn decreases health by 150. Permanent. So in this description, we find that iron composes this armor. Iron will cause an additional 500 in damage to any creature with a weakness to iron, such as fairies. Any armor composed of iron will gain an additional 500 in defense to any fairy attacks and negates any cards and effects from any fairy character. Wind is any movement of the air. It will push fire and airborne poison from their areas a given variable distance. So this is a powerful card given the boost in attack and defense it gives Akem, especially because it is permanent for the remainder of the game, and under the right circumstances can be quite devastating to fairy characters. But it comes with a price of 150 damage to him each round. This is a card best suited for an endgame scenario, or even when Akem may be at the end of his life, squaring off against a fairy opponent. This next card belongs to Mogolbra, the Crypt Hag, who I often refer to as a nasty piece of work. She possesses 7 cards, far greater than the usual 4 or 5. She also starts the game with 3 different options for weapons. She is a character for players who like complexity and even revel in frustrating an opponent. Her card utilizes a form of sympathetic magic, essentially tying the life of one allied character to the life of an opposing character, helping to ensure its survival. The allied character cannot die so long as the opposing character lives. It also allows the allied character to play a card that same turn if that opposing character plays one, disregarding the rules set by the game. But the catch is the opposing character may do the same, and in order to first pull this card off, all 3 characters must be aligned in a straight, unbroken line, following the rules of line of sight. Line of sight is defined as any area on the playing field that can connect one character to another via an unbroken straight line, regardless of height. A string may be held from one character to the other in case of dispute. If the string remains unbent, then the characters are considered within each other's line of sight. The camera angle can be positioned in the virtual version of the game behind a character to see if another character falls within its line of sight. Now here is one of my favorite cards from one of my favorite characters in the game, Zaraphanes, the Demon Alchemist, the Philosopher's Stone. Wielding the magnum opus, Zaraphanes may now transmute one adjacent substance each turn he takes, may transmute parts of the playing field up to an area of 2x2 spaces each turn. Permanent. I won't read you the whole lengthy description of what transmute entails, but transmute is such a versatile ability. First, it can transform one phase of matter into another phase. For example, the salt water that can damage Zaraphanes, since he is a demon, can now be transmuted into an ice bridge, keeping him free from harm should he have chosen to cross it. The stone floor can be turned to lava, making his opponents think twice before approaching him, especially Valthroven, the vampire knight, who gains an additional 500 damage due to his weakness to fire. Zaraphanes can use this card to transmute steel into iron or silver, giving him or his opponent's weapons a damage boost to vampires, undead, and fairies. This is a card that a player with a creative and clever mind can really use to take an opponent by surprise. In fact, much of the environment, the attributes of characters, and many other cards as well were designed so that players could have much creative freedom, exploring unthought of and ingenious applications. I wanted to be able to play a game where even as a designer, players surprise me with ideas that I myself hadn't thought of. The gaming field and terrain follows this line of freedom as well. This current board is composed of a 2 foot by 2 foot square of sheet metal that I laminated with a sheet of faux marble, which is meant to represent seawater. I chose sheet metal for the base because most of the modular dungeon tiles and structures used here are magnetized pieces made by the company Dwarven Forge. These pieces stay in place quite well on the board. This particular gaming field is meant to represent the ruins of a seaside castle. In designing this game, I want players to not only have the option of building a team of characters, but also to build their own battlefield as well. Getting more into the logistics of this, I am exploring cost-effective options for players to build their field for the tabletop version. Options like laser-cut composite material, for example. Since it takes time and effort to set up a field like this, I'm also wondering if it would be feasible to give players the option of having prefabricated boards that open the three-dimensional terrain like a pop-up book, so they can easily store it when not in use. And to further follow the idea of customization for gameplay, because this game may take players 3 to 6 hours and up to finish, depending of course on the individuals playing the game, I think the rules should allow players to modify health levels of the characters, reducing them equally if they feel like they want a game to take less time. Add a movement space to each character, or even restrict areas of the playing field to confine the battle to a smaller area. At the end of the day, I want a game players feel they are happy to play because they may modify it, if necessary, according to their needs and schedules. If the cards are where the magic of the game resides, and the terrain its bones, the characters are the heart and soul of it. The mythos of the game gives that these characters upon the playing field are souls trapped within the Baetylus stones, people and creatures chosen specifically for their rare abilities. As of now, there are 16 fully designed playable characters, minus some artwork for some of the characters and most of the cards, and I have pretty well formed ideas for another 13 or so. The goal is to have an indefinite number of characters players may select from that are periodically added over months or years. This, I think, will add a great dynamic, a sense of ongoing life to the game. Players will have opportunities to create very unique teams and look forward to new characters coming out. Kind of like when He-Man or the Ninja Turtles would hit the toy stores with a new line of action figures. The thought is to have a website where buyers of the game can read full descriptions of the characters, their cards' abilities, see their artwork, and then select which characters they would like to purchase. None of this information is meant to be secret either. As mentioned earlier, during the course of a game, players have full access to their opponent's character sheets, which give all their stats, strengths, and weaknesses, and full descriptions of their cards. That way no player should have to feel the need to memorize this all before a game begins. As I explored the cards, I would like to now talk about some individual characters in greater detail. To begin with, in creating this game, I first envisioned it as a game that could also be explored in other media, such as a comic series, much like how Yu-Gi-Oh! Existed as both a card game, manga, and anime series. In Baetylus, Circle of Six, the protagonist was a wandering character in a fantasy world that ends up being drawn into playing this game, communicating with his chosen characters inside and outside the game, finding them to be allies of his both in and off the field. He would end up squaring off against opponents who had assembled characters with some kind of loose theme connecting them. His first match involved a castle setting, involving an opponent obsessed with defense, number of characters, and raw power. Other opponents included a witch who had assembled a team of only female characters, and an encounter on a field whose setting was a cemetery with characters related to such an environment. A battle against a team of demons, and one of the most impossible for him, battling an opponent whose characters were so powerful he used only 3 instead of 5, a seraph, a cherub, and a genie. It is still a future goal of mine, but before that story could even be told, the game itself with all its characters and rules had to be designed. In designing these characters, I strove for originality and my best to avoid tropes associated with character races and class. I also wish to portray them artistically in a realistic manner. I want these characters to appear as though they could have existed in our world at some point in time, despite their fantastical nature. For instance, one of the earliest characters I had in mind was Akem. Akem fits into the category of a monk class, excelling at martial combat while enhancing his body through mystical abilities. I first wanted to focus on his asceticism more than anything else when designing him, and this led me to learn about the sadhus of India, the Agori in particular, who smear their bodies with ash and carry and use kapalas, skull cups. This lent heavily to his design. Each character sheet is formatted in such a way that it lists information pertinent to gameplay, along with a short biography summing up who they were in their past life before being captured and placed in the Baetylus stones. Strengths, weaknesses, and card abilities are listed as well, so players know exactly who a character is before picking their circle of characters. Character sheets also contain words written in capital red letters whose definitions can be found in the glossary. Some characters like Akem appear unassuming at first, a half-naked mendicant using lengthened tonfas to help him walk due to palsy of the legs. But he has surprises in store for opponents who forget, are unfamiliar with, or fail to view his character sheet. He possesses passive immunity to many things, and even were his tonfas to be broken or knocked from his hands, his cesti, which act also as armor, will replace them without loss to his defense or attack power. Rin, the dwarven stonecutter, also appears in such a fashion. This isn't the usual fantasy dwarf bedecked in armor like a tank. He was a slave in his former life, but one with great magical abilities. Using stone as his medium, he is able to summon and remove walls, carve a stone ward onto walls, and even shake the ground of the entire playing field. His card abilities, more than most players, depend on precise positioning of his opponents. Ichabod, probably one of the only characters that has a certain element of humor to him. Ichabod is a mechanical genius that can build dangerous tinker toys, useful gadgets, and even ballistic siege weapons. As a gremlin, his race is meant as an ironic reversal. Instead of destroying and dismantling machinery, he uses his mechanical knowledge to invent and build them. His card, Magnetic Manipulation, is an example of a card sometimes found in the game, where the player has the option of picking from two very different options that will represent the ability of the card. Rin and Ichabod are examples of relatively weak characters that, if they survive long enough, can wreak devastating effects if they possess the right cards. Don't overlook their short stature. Julkani is a character whose magic abilities focus into two disciplinary spheres. As a carnival magician, she entertains by manipulating light and predicting fortunes. It is her sphere of magic, numerology, that I thought would separate her from most magic users found in a fantasy setting involving combat. With numerology, she not only can predict events, but alter them as well. Prophecy lets her take back a move you have made, even when your hand is no longer touching any of your characters. Something any chess player knows would come in handy. In a computerized version of the game, where save states are involved, this card would have even greater power, allowing the player to go back a whole round to change what they did before their opponent makes a move, altering what their opponent can do. For the tabletop version, though, its power is limited in respect to players' memories or the notes they have taken down. Provided with the game is this sheet that allows all players to keep track of information. Each player is free to make any notes they deem necessary involving duration of effects and rounds, moments, or turns it takes to build objects or an occurrence to take place. Equivalence allows players the freedom to exchange cards in their hand for the ones in their deck, just like in a poker match. Terse Reverse is a card that allows a player an opportunity to exert their imagination in employing its use, manipulating any numbers in the game in strange and clever ways. Julkani's base attack is relatively weak, but her lantern radiates light, blinding opponents not immune to light, reducing their defense. She is able to seal doors with a magic sigil as a passive ability as well. Usually a sly and subtle character, her card, Apport, is often considered one of the best in the game. It allows her to teleport any character, anywhere upon the field. Valthroven. As strong as he is weak, Valthroven the Vampire Knight is arguably the strongest and weakest character in the game. He can both physically, mentally, and psychologically dominate other characters upon the field. If card abilities did not exist in this game, and characters were played only based on inherent stats, Balthroven would be a lion among wolves. He has 4 movement spaces instead of the usual 3, and his weapon, the Ronser, has a range of 2 spaces instead of the usual 1. But one of his greatest weaknesses involves simple game strategy. Being such a threat, he is a magnet for ranged attacks, opponents wishing to eliminate him early on. The other lies within his inherent weakness when it comes to using cards. He can only use a card after having fed on blood from a character on the field. Blood can be pooled and stored for multiple uses later, but he is limited to mortal blood. Undead blood provides no sustenance. Fairies, demons, and celestials all come with detrimental effects. However, there's no saying you can't feed on an allied character, and after having played games with him a number of times, I decided to give him the card Wild Hunt, which not only allows him to feed on any race without suffering consequences, but also grants him further abilities having fed on those types. Balthroven is a character to be played with a hunter's instincts, those of patience. Eulalie, the moth pixie trickster, is for players who delight in tricking and trapping opponents, and for anyone who likes using an escape artist. She has the ability to fly, a rare ability in the game that allows characters to escape fall damage when being pushed or shaken off elevated areas, and allows them to ascend vertical areas that have no staircase. In some ways, Islandra, the Blighted Dryad, is her opposite. With only a movement rate of 2 spaces, you will find yourself more or less rooted to an area. She puts up strong defenses, but also has a card with a ranged attack based off real-life exploding seed pods. Haraxame, the Guardian Sphinx, if for nothing else, is visually one of my favorite characters of the game. Her cards allow her to parent to your opponent's hand and deck, or even your own deck, giving you quite the advantage when it comes to strategy. She attacks with only her body, so cannot suffer any weapon loss or damaging weakness to them. She can also fly. But there is one card of hers in a game where I tried my best to make cards wholly different and unique from one another, that in a way transcends the game and affects the real life of the player whose effect it is taking place upon. Sands a time imposes a time limit for the completion of a turn, whereas players always have an indefinite amount of time to plan and make their move. With this card, they now have only 1 minute before their turn ends. And now this last character I will mention is perhaps, if not my favorite, definitely sharing the spot at the top. Zaraphanes, the Demon Alchemist. When designing Zaraphanes, I really wanted to explore the alchemical beliefs and studies known to our world, those spanning from Europe to Arabia and China. Rather than have an alchemist who walks around throwing Molotov cocktails and vials of acid, as depicted in different fantasy settings, I wanted to give him abilities related to the beliefs and goals of the alchemists found in Earth's own history. One of his cards, Homunculus, is another type of card in the game in which it lists one of 2 options that the player has the freedom to choose between. In this case, Zaraphanes is able to create an artificial life form that can either be used to retrieve a card of his from the deck instead of using the standard random draw, or create a clone of himself that his soul can transfer into upon his death. Rebus allows him to combine 2 characters together, including combining himself. This allows for a character that becomes much more powerful, gaining attack, defense, and health, able to use cards from either character, and also combining the different properties of their weapons together. Due to the placement of characters involved, this can be a hard card to pull off, but it's definitely worth it. Zaraphanes is one of my favorite because he has the ability to exploit each character race's weakness in the game. He's a very malleable character that lends himself to bolster members of his team through his cards Rebus and Philosopher's Stone. Also, his card Alcahest is one of the rare cards in the game that can heal him or another player, allowing him to stay in play longer. Story-wise, I like the idea of him having been born a demon, but through his study of alchemy, finds wisdom in trying to perfect the physical and spiritual shortcomings of existence. I could talk all day about each character and how they differ, but that would cut into valuable playtime on your end. I would simply like to say that each game is going to play out so differently, even were you to set up the same characters in the same positions and draw the same cards. Just like a chess match, one small move will alter the course of the entire game. You will be disappointed when a character of yours is eliminated before you had a chance to play a great card, or even before you drew that card. But then, the following game, see a bunch of your moves and cards fall like a wonderful cascade of well-placed dominoes. The trick is to always view the members of your team as dependent on one another. The game is purposely designed to allow players to express ingenious applications and creative ventures within each action their characters take. Players are encouraged to explore outside-the-box thinking, radical combinations of cards and abilities, and to always remember the playing field with its different components can act as both armor and weapons to the characters navigating through it. In so many ways, every substance on the field and every character dead or alive can be manipulated into an ally or adversary. The simplest of actions in this game can ripple their circles, upsetting the foundations of any strategy. Embrace this chaos. Expect the unexpected.